Hey guys, it's Ornlu. It's 1:38 a.m. as I'm recording this. I just got back from a Blackpink concert, which was awesome by the way, and I come back and there's a huge freaking patch. So, why go to bed? Who even needs to sleep anyway? So, indeed guys, as of at some point today when I was gone, there was a big July PUP patch, which means it's not in the game yet, but most of these changes will be implemented at some point soon, and you can access it if you so choose. I have not seen any of these changes up until now, and holy cow! I am using Reddit, which who posted this? Good old Bloody Day 33 helpfully posted for us because the actual link to the patch notes isn't working for me. So we're going to go through these, and I'm going to give my thoughts, such as I can at this point with my current mental state, and talk about, okay, what are all of these changes going to be impacting the game? I am going to skim over most of the UI graphical changes because there is just so much to talk about. Some of the things I wanted to highlight, though, is there's somewhere we can get the Tarkin thump. Yeah, the Tarkin thump. Yeah, we're getting the AOC Tarkin thump. That's awesome. This one is kind of weird. Added a sound alert when queuing and training units with fewer than 5 remaining population. I guess it's just a little audio cue. Bit odd to me though. Let's see what else. The negative regeneration. So you get a little bit of a UI indicator when the Liao Dao is bleeding ya. Somewhere along the way, I saw that you can now set gather points for buildings that are still under construction, which is a really nice quality of life change. That's in here somewhere. Beyond that, again, lots and lots of little fixes here and there. But what you guys are going to be interested in are the balance changes, of which there are a lot. Like, a lot. Oh boy. So, let's just jump right into these, shall we? Of course, I'll link this so that you can read all of the specific changes at your leisure. Like, slightly too large here. There we go. So, general changes. TC projectile speed increased from 7 to 8. Now, projectile speed for most arrows or even gunpowder bullets in the game is 7. So the TC arrows are actually moving slightly faster than any other arrow in the game, and certainly faster than any other defensive structure. And the projectile size is increased from 0.1 to 0.15. So this is going to greatly help the TC actually hit stuff in the early game, which it's kind of weird because in AOC, TCs hit stuff just fine, but then there was some change somewhere along the way with DE, and then TCs just can't hit anything. At the high level especially, it's very abusable with just how horrible TCs are at actually hitting the thing they're trying to attack, especially before ballistics, but even after ballistics, so these changes should help in that regard. Fortified Gate Pierce Armor increased. There is no reason for a Fortified Gate to take 4 damage a shot from an Arbalest. That makes sense. And then they're buffing Rams again, which I think is interesting. You can see the capped Rams are getting 1 more melee armor, and the Siege Rams 1 more melee armor than that. So the capped and especially Siege Rams are going to be much tankier now. I mean, they still have -1 melee armor. Let's not, blow this out of proportion. But it's still going to be much harder to take down those late game Rams. And I don't know, it feels like Rams are pretty good to me. They certainly have their situations in which you want to use them. If there really is an issue with the unit, it's the fact that it just has to get into close range to attack, whereas, bombard cannons and trebuchets you can pick off at a distance, and therefore you can dictate engagements better. So I guess this is just one more way of trying to push Ram play. Next, Siege Tower cost reduced from 200 wood and 160 gold to 100 wood and 120 gold. So it's still expensive enough that you can't just spam them to garrison units inside of them and be annoying. But it is certainly much more affordable if you're going for a Siege Tower strat in early Castle Age, especially. So again, it's a gimmick unit, but it still has the situations where you want to use them, so that's fine. Treadmill crane change is kind of weird. Going from 300 food, 200 wood to 200 wood and 50 stone. Like, I get that this is fewer overall resources, but adding a stone cost to something feels really weird. Like, you're reducing the cost but adding a stone cost. I honestly don't really understand that. And then they are making it research much faster. Honestly, Treadmill Crane is a good upgrade. It's worth picking up on your way to Imperial Age or in Imperial Age for any civ that gets it, just because you tend to throw down a lot of buildings in late game. So I really don't understand these changes and don't think they're necessary, but I mean, it's going to have a small impact regardless. It's just, yeah, I don't think that was necessary. Traction Trebuchets, conversion resistance from 0 to 3. It is certainly very annoying to get those converted by enemy monks, so this will at least make that a slightly more difficult prospect. So it's now going to be actually much more difficult to be converted by monks. Heavy Rocket Cart upgrade reduced from 800 wood 750 gold to 800 wood 600 gold, so 150 gold cheaper. Brings it, I guess, a little bit more in line with the Onager upgrade, which is 800 food 500 gold, so at least the heavy rocket carts are basically analogs to Onagers until you get those special unique techs for certain civs. So, I mean, that's fine. Not too big of a deal. This is the big one. The devs listened to my video on most pressing balance changes. The skirmisher train time increased from 22 to 26 seconds. That is huge. Skirmishers are just so ubiquitous on basically any map type. And in the feudal age, it's just you can mass up so many of them that really they start countering everything, because even scouts with bad pathfinding really are going to struggle once you get to like 25 skirmishers and they're killing each scout in a few hits. So, good change there. We'll see how much this impacts the meta. Obviously, in an ideal world, the pathing is improved so that melee units can better hit ranged units, but if that was a simple change, they would have done it by now. So my thought is that they just can't quite do it for whatever reason. I don't know the details. So as things stand, this is very, very necessary for the current metagame. Skirmishers still train much faster than archers, so that's not going to be too big of a deal. Skirmishers will still do their job in countering archers. They're still going to be very good, just a little bit slower to get going. Pikemen bonus damage versus Mamelukes was reduced from 11 to 7, same for Halbs. I have no idea why this is the case. Mamelukes are already one of the best units in the game, and if anything, too easy to get to. Yeah, I'm really not a fan of this change. Probably an extra hit or two to die from Pikemen and Halbs, so yeah, not a fan of this change. Just seems one random and two not pushing things in the right direction, but Mamelukes are still going to be great. They're now just even slightly better. This is something I just saw briefly from talking to people on Discord. Food from animals killed by military or buildings no longer spoils and can now be gathered by villagers. So you are now going to be incentivized to kill every animal you can with TCs. I really don't know. Like, they did this a while ago. Like, a couple years ago. And then they switched it back to how it currently is. Personally, I feel like, okay, have there be a little bit of a risk associated with trying to kill a boar with a TC. Laming is now going to be more difficult. Well, it's not more difficult. It has less overall reward, because if you send your militia forward, it kills the deer. Now the villagers can gather from the deer anyway. I guess they just want to make it a bit easier for players to do Dark Age. I'm an old coot. I don't like these sorts of changes, but so be it. Yeah, just I don't feel like this is on the top 100 most pressing issues for AoE2. You know what I mean? All right, fixed an issue where secondary projectiles from the mangonel line deal no damage. This is actually something that's been around forever, and has meant that attack rounding with mangonels actually does deal slightly less damage, because the extra projectiles just don't do any damage. So you get like 40 damage instead of 45 damage, or 44 damage. It's very minor, but there are certain situations, like if you're attack grounding a unit that has like 40 HP, then there are situations where like you won't kill it if you attack round, because if like they have 1 armor or something, then again, the numbers at those sort of marginal situations kind of got weird with the attack round, so that's actually a good change. All right, Civ-specific changes. Also, notably, no nerf to Cav Archers. Civ-specific changes, though. Bohemians with the Hussite Wagon. Secondary projectile damage reduced from 4 to 3. This is a very good change. And as far as I can tell by their how they word things, this does not apply to the Elite Hussite Wagon. But Hussite Wagons and Castle Age are way too strong. They're way too hard to counter. Is it really their damage that's the issue? I mean, it's definitely not great. Because remember, this damage is not blocked by armor. I think. I'm pretty sure. I'm pretty tired, guys. Regardless, it's a nerf. Moral of the story, you're nerfing the Hussite Wagon damage in Castle Age, and that is certainly not a bad thing. The issue is still that you can't counter them easily. The issue isn't necessarily the Hussite Wagons themselves, it's Hussite Wagons plus Monks, because the two units counter each other's weaknesses pretty perfectly, and it's just so easy to go into in low eco situations. So I feel like you're still not addressing the main issue with the unit, but I'm honestly not even too sure how you do that without completely reworking the Hussite Wagon, so I mean, this is certainly a change I would rather have than not have. Bulgarian's Krepost can now research the Elite Konik upgrade. Good stuff. Very proud of you, Bulgarians. This isn't going to matter all that much at all. You still do need the castles to get the unique tax and to get conscription and to get trebuchets, so castles with Bulgarians are still very important. But I guess if you have if you're in a situation where you're making Koniks, have probably multiple Kreposts, but don't have a castle, you can get the Elite Konik upgrade at the Krepost. There is going to be some corner case in exactly one pro game I cast where that is useful, and we shall rejoice upon that moment, and not a moment before. Burgundians, militia. Now, I assume this is the Flemish militia, as regular militia do not cost that. But yeah, so the gold cost is a little bit cheaper. I do think it's interesting that Burgundians have that early game option that you can kind of add as like a spearman swordsman hybrid, kind of like the Fire Lancer in that sort of hybrid role, especially now that the spearman armor class is removed. This is going to make Burgundians a lot stronger in the early game, as those Flemish militia are going to basically be swordsmen that are also very good against cavalry. And they're going to scale a bit better throughout the game because they are cheaper. So, actually, the Spearman armor class removed is probably a bigger deal than the gold discount. Because remember that all ranged units basically get bonus damage versus Spearmen, which includes both archers and skirmishers. So in early game, those guys just got nuked by archers and skirmishers. Now, they are still going to be countered by them because of the lack of armor, but it's going to be far less overbearing, shall we say. A good change there for sure. Celts, Furor Celtica. Effect of additional HP now applies to trebuchets. So trebuchets are going to be getting an extra 40% HP. It used to just apply to siege workshop units. Now it's probably going to say siege weapons. So 0.4 times 150 is 60. So that means Celt Trebs will have 210 HP. That's a tanky trebuchet. That's going to be huge in Treb Wars. It's going to be huge in just keeping your Trebs alive so they can get that one extra shot off. I mean, 40% HP for a Treb is not half bad. So, again, did Celts have an issue where their siege wasn't good enough in the late game? I don't think that's the case, but sure, why not? Why not, guys? Ranks, this is something I've been complaining about for a while. So Bearded Axe now gives extra range. So instead of 4 range maximum for Castle Age Throwing Axemen and 5 range maximum for Elite Throwing Axemen, and it's now going to be up 1 to now 6. Mostly this is going to be for the Elite Throwing Axemen. That does put it on par with the Gebetto. I still feel like the Throwing Axeman kind of suffers in that it's harder to get to than Hand Cannoneers, and Hand Cannoneers generally outperform them in sort of that anti-infantry generalist support role for your cavalry. But you are reducing the train time pretty nicely from 17 to 13 seconds, so that is very fast. And their unique elite upgrade was also way too expensive. It was very much in the old line of elite unique unit upgrades as opposed to the new ones, which are much cheaper. And so you're getting a nice 150 food and was that 200 gold cheaper for the elite upgrade. And then the Throwing Axemen are also training much faster anyway, which is very common for infantry unique units. All right. Good changes there. We'll have to see if it pushes Throwing Axemen play a little bit more. Franks are kind of I don't know. It's like the thing with Franks is that they don't do skirmishers well, and they don't do cav archers well, and they don't do monks well. That puts them in very poor stead in the meta. But even so, you lack the flexibility of a lot of other cav civs like Georgians and Lithuanians and Magyars, Romans. So I feel like that's kind of their issue, but I don't want Franks to get a better tech tree, right? That's, I feel, more nerfing the other civs. That said, these changes are welcome to me. Goths, Hunters, +5 attack versus Wild Boar, civilization bonus removed. This bonus was either useless for you because you accidentally killed the boar too far from your TC, or it's a laming bonus so that you can more easily lame your opponent's boar with a villager palisaded in. This bonus has no place, in my opinion, in modern AoE2, and is just kind of unnecessary, so good thing that thing's gotten rid of. Not a big deal. All right, Gurjaras. The food from starting Forge Bush civilizations has been increased from 125 to 175, so you're getting an extra 100 food at your starting Forge Bushes. I like this because when Gurjaras were added, it was just essential that you go ahead and push in all of your deer, otherwise your Dark Age can get kind of rough. But then chickens were added, and then you can't do that unless you chicken funnel, which shouldn't be a thing. So yeah, definitely a fan of that. In the world of chickens, it's definitely a good change for Gurjaras. And it's not like they were overbearing these days on deer maps anyway. Then we're getting a Camel Scout buff. So their attack is higher. It's the same as a Scout Cavalry. And look at that train time reduction. And it shouldn't be... This is probably including the Gurjara team bonus. Anything faster than that would be ridiculous. So Camel Scouts are a lot better. Now they are very expensive. 55 food and 60 gold. That said, they're basically stronger Scout Cavalry. Well, I mean, they're a little slower and they don't have the Pierce armor, but I mean that's a lot. They get a lot of HP, and they get that anti-Scout aspect to them. So yeah, definitely interesting buffs here to the Gurjaras in the early game. Good stuff there. Hindustani's Shatagni. Cost increased from 500 food, 300 gold to 500 food and 650 gold. So an extra 350 gold. This is something that I've asked for a while now. Honestly, I feel like it could probably be even more expensive than that, but sure, why not? This will do as a start. I'm fine with Shatagni being one of the better unique techs in the game. It just should have a cost that reflects that. In the same way that Druzhina does, or Rocketry now, or Shinki Chano, like the really good upgrades, right? Yeah, good change there. Khmer Ballista Elephants, getting a bit of an HP reduction. That's very minor, but okay. And then reducing the heavy siege armor means that they will be taking even more damage from mangonels and bombard cannons. So, good change there, Ballista Elephants. Like, the thing with Ballista Elephants is that they're just kind of brain dead to use, and I think especially in lower levels, you can just get to this huge blob of Ballista Elephants and patrol them across the map. And the units that best counter them require a lot of micro, right? Bombard cannons and onagers. And they're kind of tough to get to. Well, not bombard cannons, but onagers are. So I think that's probably for the best. Ballista Elephants will still do their job, but there will at least be a little bit more easily countered. All right. Koreans, Turtle Ship. Rocket projectile adjusted from 6 pierce 4 melee. Wait. 6 piece. Oh, okay, I get it. So instead of doing 6 pierce, it does 4 melee damage. I love this. And then for elite, it's still dealing 4 melee damage. Okay, guys. This is really important because fire ships completely hard counter turtles, and it made no sense because Koreans don't get demo ships. So your anti-fire ship unit, other than just having more fire ships, is turtle ships. And I really hated how that change made the turtle ships good against galleons, but not good against actual fire ships. And it's like every unique ship is good against galleys. So I'm a big fan of this change. It'll make them the proper fire ship counter while also being a little bit weaker to the galley line. But that's where you have your own fire ships or your own cheap galleys in the back. And big fan of that. And then rocket projectile bonus damage versus ships adjusted from +5 to 0 and +6 to 1. Ships, for the most part, don't have melee armor, so this is really just making it that 4 melee damage, which is the most relevant aspect. this is still going to be a buff versus the fire ships. It's going to be a nerf versus the galley line, but again, that's okay. You have answers to galleons as Koreans with very cheap fire ships. Or your own cheaper galleons. And the turtle ships are still going to be a good meat shield unit. So yeah, big fan of those changes. Magyars, Elite Magyar Hussar. Oh, okay. So both regular and elite, 75 to 8, 85 attack increase from 9 to 10, 10 to 11. Why are they buffing Magyar Hussars? What? The unit's insane. It's like, guys, do you know what the issue is for Magyars? Their post-imp play when gold runs low is just not good enough, guys. Magyars just really struggle in that situation. I have no idea why these changes are happening, guys. If you do want to make the Magyar Hussars a bit stronger, I'd also make them a little slower than the regular Hussar line. To, show that, okay, this is a more combat-focused, instead of raiding-focused, light cavalry unit. I have no idea why these changes are happening. Magyars are already a fantastic civ, especially in late game. Yeah, I hope they remove this before launch. Yeah. Mind-boggling. Alright, so, Persians, Savar, upgrade increase from 1,600 to 1,200-600, so 200 more food. This is good. Savar are basically a side upgrade plus from Paladins. They're better against archers, a lot better against archers. Whereas being, like, mostly the same in melee combat. Paladin is going to be, 1,300 food, 750 gold. So it's still cheaper than Paladin by 150 food and gold. But it's not as much cheaper. So good change there. Savars were a bit too easy to get into. Oh dear. Oh dear, guys. Why are we buffing the full Vark again? Okay, Poles are now going to have a top 3 eco again. Okay, they're undoing the nerf from before. Yeah. That is, that's something, guys. The pole eco is already so insane, and now it's just going to be, again, up there at the very, very top. Now, poles, you have to put in a lot of work, right? You have to add in those farms around the full Vark. It exposes the villagers, makes them much easier to harass. I mean, I guess this will just make the pole eco amazing again, but I'm telling you guys, there's a reason this was nerfed in the first place. Poles are overshadowed by some of the other cavalry civilizations, or civilizations that are used as cavalry civs, like Romans and Khmer, but I think that's more of an issue with nerfing those civs instead of buffing poles. We'll see. We'll see. Portuguese organ gun, maximum range reduced from 7 to 6, so they no longer outrange town centers, and they no longer they no longer match the range of crossbowmen. So good change there. Organ guns are very unfun to play against, especially in Castle Age. Elite organ guns can still be very, very strong in late game, but they aren't as oppressive as the Castle Age organ guns are. So good change there. Romans, Scorpions cost less, is now 50% cheaper instead of 60% cheaper. Fine, I still think the issue with Romans is that they require zero thought to play. Just spam cavalry with them with an insane eco, and I think that, if anything, I'd nerf their cavalry, make them more of a plodding infantry and siege civ, but I've talked about that before. Saracens, elite... I assume this is just one change. Elite Mamluk, base HP reduced from 90 to 80. Okay, so that explains the pikeman nerf. Yeah, I'm fine with Elite Mamluks having less HP overall. Personally, I would have made them more expensive to tack into. But this is fine. The unit needed a nerf, for sure. So I'm glad that is being looked at. The shoo-shoo! The shoo-shoo! Lumberjacks generate food in addition to wood is nerfed. I don't know. That bonus didn't feel overpowered. I don't know why they're doing that. War Chariot, cost increased from 50 food 90 gold to 65 food 90 gold, so 15 more food per War Chariot. My understanding was that there was a pretty degen rush you could do with War Chariot, so I guess this is probably for the best. No idea why they're nerfing the eco bonus, though. That one's kind of weird to me. All right, Sicilians. Soldiers receive less bonus damage, increased from 33% to 40%. I would have made this 50% for infantry and archers, and then 33% for cavalry. But yeah, I mean, it just makes their units take less damage. Yeah, that's good. And then their sergeants are going to be costing less food, so they're going to be better. And the donjon can now research the elite sergeant, and then pikemen and halb. Okay. Good changes there for the Sicilians. I'm not sure. Like, they're really pushing this the donjon sergeant play, which is interesting, right? It's the interesting part of the civ. But I don't know if that's like, the thing is, that's a gimmick, right? It's not something you can do necessarily in every situation. And it's the soldiers receiving less bonus damage that's like, okay, this is affecting Sicilians in a majority of their matchups on a majority of maps. So we'll have to see how good that is. I mean, the 7% less bonus damage they're taking. I mean, most things in AoE don't deal that much bonus damage, so it's probably like 1 less damage they're taking here and there. We'll have to really see how that one plays out, but I suppose this is good. That's fine. All right, Elite Conquistador, or Conquistadors in general. So 60 food, 70 gold, 270 food, 60 gold. So flipping the food and gold cost. This makes them a bit harder to utilize in Castle Age when food is at a premium, and makes them a bit easier to afford in the late game when gold is at a premium. Honestly, not a bad change there. Again, it's not something that I felt would necessarily be a priority, but Conquistadors in early Castle Age have always been impressive, and now they're going to be at least a little bit harder to get going, while also being a bit better in the late game. Good stuff. The Wei and the Woo Woo. All right. Receive 1 free villager. Any economic technology. Okay, so this includes wheelbarrow, handcart, and guild nuts, I suppose. Guilds. So sure, why not? Wei are a silly civilization. But yeah, this is probably how the bonus should have been worded from the start, so we'll have to see how good of a boost this is. The Woo Woo. The Ooh Woo Woo. This change, absolutely necessary. Reducing the extra food from 65 to 55. Bonus was just a little too good in the early game on land maps, and especially hybrid maps. And then, hallelujah, the Jian Swordsman losing some melee armor, and losing that shock infantry armor. I actually think they're still pretty bad in the late game. Like, they're still too good in Castle Age and still too bad in the late game. So we'll have to see how this impacts things. I mean, it's going to make the Jian Swordsman rush a lot worse, which is very good. But I fear that the Woo are going to be even worse in late game. So we'll have to see how that goes. Wild animals? Wait. What? They're changing all the aggro animals? Okay, so crocodiles have a charge attack and are slower. Snow leopards and jags are faster. You have dire wolves that have twice the HP, 1 more attack, and HP regeneration. Rabid wolves, they deal bleed damage and a black particle. Why are they doing this, man? I mean, this, I guess, is for campaigns and weird map gimmicks. Komodo dragons also deal bleed damage. Brown bears have more HP. Polar bears have more HP and more attack. This is weird, man. Is having all of these distinctions between the fauna really something that AoE needs? I mean, just changes how villagers work early on. Excuse me. Yeah, really, really bizarre. I don't know what I think about this. Whatever. Chronicles, I only saw that there were Chronicle changes, and guys, I am not going to read through all of these because 98% of you guys don't know what all this stuff is in the first place, and I even barely remember what they are. What I will say, this worries me that we're going to have these civs in ranked. I really feel like they're not bothering to make these changes, and all of these changes, unless they plan on adding them to ranked. Otherwise, why bother testing that and spending the dev time going through these? I don't like this at all. The civs just don't make any sense. In Age of Empires, Keep them in Chronicles. I didn't even think we needed Chronicles in the first place. Yeah, I mean, we'll have to see. We'll have to see. Again, I really don't understand why we would need to have these in. Whatever. Whatever. Did they even use a freaking different tech tree? Come on! What, now you're gonna have to have players determine the difference between, like, the slightly renamed units from the regular AoE to the ancient AoE? Guys, I don't like it. Whatever. New maps. Aquarina. Okay, Water Arena. Alright, alright. Sardis. Okay. So, Central Trade Workshop. So it's kind of like a King of the Hill type map. Grapple is a, I think it was originally in Wandering Warriors Cup. Essentially, it's like start all in the middle of the map, and then there's like a little pond, and then on the outside of the map, there's a bunch of resources. Like a Nomad-ish style map. Stranded's been in a ton of tournaments recently. I'm not the biggest fan of it, but sure, it's there. Mired's been in tournaments. It has got all the boars in the middle. Border Dispute, we'll have to see which version they add. Ask for food in the Central Swamp. Okay, we'll have to see, again, which version of Border Dispute added. Chaos Pit, thought this was in the game already. And it's like a classic map. I'm surprised it wasn't in the game before. Big fan of that one. Mirkwood. What, are we going to go to Dol Guldur? Yeah, so we'll have to see what that one looks like. And then Forest Breach. Captain, what? So it's like Michi versus Arabia on the same map. That's pretty goofy. All right, so players no longer receive 2 kings. Okay, that's probably a good idea. And yeah, that's certainly good. All right, so this is RMS stuff. So again, if you are interested in this, you can of course check that out. I will link the Reddit post. And that is it. So a lot of changes, guys. A lot of changes. I like half of them, and half of them feel like just super unnecessary and not targeting, I would say, the main issue areas in AoE. We'll have to see how they play up. I mean, this is just so many different changes to the game, and there are going to be tons of different things to go ahead and test out. So thank you guys all so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed. I really need to get some sleep. And yeah, see you guys next time.